Well, all right. So, the creative game making prompts inspired by the game of Galaxies, Star Trek: The Next Generation. I will have my review elsewhere, um, and some of my feelings about it over there. But that being said, as far as Star Trek games go, I can see a couple of different things we could do here. First of all, one, the galaxies should be quadrants, not galaxies. The docks should be wormholes, passing from alpha quadrant to gamma quadrant or whatever it is. Is that the one that the Voyager was in? It had the wormhole that the Ferengi were trying to control, and then yeah, there was that whole thing. So I feel like a more accurate to the series map to traverse and win treaties at, I think that would be better. All right, and number 2, speaking of the Ferengi, I kind of want to see a variant of this game that has a little bit of like Monopoly added to it. I want it to be the Ferengi rules of acquisition game, where acquiring trade agreements instead of treaties is the goal. And when you get to a planet, there's a challenge in order to win that negotiation. And that challenge has a rule of a number of rules of acquisition that can be used to win some of those negotiations. So you might turn over a challenge where something, it doesn't really matter, something difficult is in your way, and there are 3 different rules of acquisition that can help you get past that difficulty to win that negotiation. And so if you happen to have one of those rules in your hand, you could play that. And, using rule 35 rather than rule 12 may only win you a partial negotiation contract, whereas having the right match for it could win you the whole deal. I think, and being able to, once you've got a negotiation there, having that be like a property you acquire in Monopoly it just makes sense for the rules of acquisition. Number 3. Okay, so in this game, the way they set it up, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They give you cards that are the crystals that have nothing to do with travel. They have nothing to do with flight distances or energy levels. They're dilithium crystals just because that's the only thing they could think to do with it. And yet then they give you the little glass beads that are the treaties that you acquire. I'm like, why aren't the cards the treaties? Why aren't the crystals the crystals? Just like, why? The cards should be treaties. The glass needs to be the crystals. The crystals should be what you use to travel distances. I guess it's just my thing. You've seen in some of the other games that I've talked about, and in the game that I designed for some of these kinds of things, I like a game where the movement mechanism is a rationed resource that you acquire through travel. I like the fact that every turn or you land on a space, you draw a card, and those cards have a point value that can be used to do things or move. And you have to choose how you spend those. To me, acquiring the dilithium crystals as a means of fuel for your ship, enabling you to travel or provide the power to do other things, so you choose how you spend them, makes more sense to me. And having those crystals be crystals and the cards be the treaties you acquire, that makes more sense to me. And I think we're on 4. That was 1, 2, yeah, something like that. I feel like with the Star Trek franchise, it's a backward mechanism to have players competing with one another as members of the Enterprise to get the most treaties. I think that's backwards. My mind says Star Trek Enterprise crew, any game involving them should be a cooperative game. Now, if you were to set the game up, possible to set the game up as the Enterprise versus a Klingon bird of prey or versus the Romulan ships, that there should be a possibility of even then doing team victories, so that it's you and 2 other people on a team against me and 2 other people on my team, and the team wins by each individual player working to benefit the group. I feel like there should be a cooperative element in a Star Trek board game, and it should be less competitive, but not necessarily without competition. Okay, so 5. I feel like there's no reason why we couldn't have episode-specific cards. Like, settlement destroyed by Borg, caught in a time loop. Have game mechanisms that resolve different issues. Some kind of, you've disconnected Hugh from the Borg and then reconnected him with a virus that causes the Borg to become individuals again. Like, have a card that lets you do that when you encounter the Borg or a Borg event. It lets you disrupt that through that. Why wouldn't you have cards like that? That seems to me like the better way to go with some card aspects. And then 6 is have yourself as a crew member, not like Data, Worf, Guinan, whatever. But have yourself just be a random crew member as you. Ken, the engineering crew member. And then have the show characters be event cards, picking an away team or ship invasion, and having me decide to pick an engineering category will let me have certain advantages towards resolving the issue card. And I feel like if you did that, that would work really well with the other idea of doing a cooperative play. So, I mean, it's just like, these are things that I think when I think of a Star Trek game. The review of what I thought of this one, that'll come up later, but I think overall, there's much that could have been done differently for this game, or in this case, again, like the Avengers prompts, these are very fan fiction-y. They're very much based on this franchise, but there's no reason why you can't reskin this, use these rules with these modified ideas for additional rules or techniques, and do it in a fantasy setting, or make your own science fiction setting where you use these rules instead of what they use. So those are the ideas. Hopefully there's some inspiration in there for you, and I will see you for the next episode. Take care and have a good night. All right, and end. Yes, sir.